What's going on, y'all? It is Bryon. The stats say I got 3 seconds to hook you. I'm aiming for 5. On today's episode, we're going to talk about how to make your social media work for you as opposed to you working on it. I'll get to you after the intro. Peace. And we're back. So for those that don't know, my wife and I run the What's the Business podcast with Bryon and Brandy. On days where we have guests, we interview the guests, figure out what makes their businesses tick. On days we don't have guests or when we're just doing YouTube exclusive content, it's going to be more focused on business and marketing for y'all, for small business owners specifically, but for anybody that's looking to grow their footprint in the business and marketing world. So today, what we're going to talk about is how to make your marketing work for you. Now, for a lot of people, and you don't know, your best employee is sitting there waiting in the wings for you. Your best employee is your social media presence. Your social media presence can do whatever you need it to do. As long as you nurture it and train it the right way, it will do the things that you need it to do. If you need your social media presence to go out and find new potential leads, you can set up your social media accounts to do that. If you need your social media accounts to sell products for you, you can set your social media up to do that as well. If you need your social media to educate potential clients about services that you provide, you can set your social media up to do that. A little bit about me. My name is Bryon. I own a business called I Sell Words, LLC. What I do is I help small businesses figure out ways to leverage their social media accounts to get big returns. I work with businesses that don't have huge budgets to get things done, all the way up to businesses that have the budget to do whatever they want to. The reality is the strategies aren't that much different, but maybe the way you deploy them might be. So if you got any questions or anything, hit me up. I'll drop my email in the show notes and you guys can check me out. But if you are a small business owner, it all starts with a conversation. Book a time so we can sit down and have a consult and I can kind of do initial audit of your social media and figure out what it's doing versus what you want it to be. First things first, if you want to make your social media work for you, the number one thing you need to do is figure out what social media channel you're using. I use channel and platform interchangeably. When I say channel, I mean Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, LinkedIn, whatever. You got to figure out what channel you're using. And the thing that determines what channel you're going to be using are a couple of different factors. And as the business owner, you're going to have to figure out which one matters more to you. One, you could say, okay, I'm most comfortable using this platform. And comfort does matter because when you're comfortable with the content you're creating, it comes out a lot more organic. It feels realer. And that is an important consideration, y'all. Your comfort does matter because your clients, if you've done the other homework to really narrow your clients down to the people that are really your core group and your best clients, you've already done the homework to kind of figure out what messaging and what brings them to you, and you're able to deliver that to them on every experience. And so you've really narrowed down your audience to your best clients. And it's not just a transactional thing where they're coming to you because you're the cheapest. We know, and it's been documented, how I feel about being the cheapest in the space. It's just, ugh. Anyway, but you got to decide what you're going to use. So the first consideration is, what are you comfortable on? The next consideration is, where are your clients? You may feel uber comfortable on TikTok, but your clients are over here on Facebook. You need to figure out how to make it work over on Facebook. Or you need to figure out how to create content for both and repurpose it so that you can create content for Facebook that can also work on TikTok. And you can do that with a little bit of work. Do not try to be present on everything because you can't give your effort to everything. And it's going to show. When you have scattershot marketing where you're trying to be everywhere and you don't have the team to pull it off, it's just not going to work. you need to make sure that you have the support system underneath to help you do that. And a lot of times, small business owners, you're limited. You may have one person that handles your social media, or you may be handling social media yourself. You don't want to overwhelm them by having to learn too many different platforms and too many different methods. I can tell you right now, the rules for posting on Instagram are different than the rules for posting on Facebook. And I'm not talking about arbitrary general wisdom kind of rules. I'm talking about specific picture sizes and video formats will not work on Instagram the way they'll work on Facebook, or they may not work on Facebook the way they work on LinkedIn. So you need to understand the rules of the platform you're engaging in. Next, decide what message you're going to use. So you need to figure out what message you're trying to communicate. Are you trying to sell a product? Are you just providing engagement kind of content, where this is just something that's relevant to the audience interest that may give them some good information that they can actually use, but it doesn't directly sell a product, but it puts you in their mind as somebody who's an expert in that space? You got to figure that piece out. You have to figure out what your messaging is. A lot of times we find content that tries to do too many things at once. It tries to sell, it tries to inform, and it becomes super long form. Now, that can work. Look at an infomercial. If you want to go with long form content, you have to learn the rules of long form content to keep it engaging so that people are learning at the same time. The more things you expect that content to do, the more complicated it's going to be. So if you're just starting out, I would just say, okay, this piece of content here is to introduce a specific product. And in that, I need to list some pain points and the problems that this product solves and how to gain access to this product. And that's what I need to include in the marketing message. Don't try to do too many things at once, and don't muddle your messages. You can do that once you figure out the basics of it. Figure out what content you're going to use. That's the next thing. What kind of content are you going to use? Is it going to be a social media post? Are you going to do a video? I'm biased towards videos, but I also know how to write. So is it going to be a social media, a blog entry, or maybe just a post on social media with a link to a product page linked in there? What are you going to do? What kind of content? On Facebook specifically, you can do video, you can do photos, you can link to other websites. They kind of frown on that. I'm gonna be honest with you. They're not huge on you moving traffic off the site. And most of these social media companies aren't big on that, but Facebook really doesn't like you moving eyeballs off the site onto your own content. And so they're trying to figure out, and they've come up with new ways where they can direct you towards in-platform kind of ads that do the explaining for you. But you just got to figure out how you're going to deliver it. And you got to figure out what you're comfortable with. Some people are super comfortable with photos of themselves and captions. Others are more comfortable with videos where they're kind of explaining their points of the bias on social media is moving towards video. There's a lot of consternation in the creator community because of what's happening with Instagram, where Instagram is pivoting away from photos and they're leaning into the video stuff, and they're trying to become another version almost like of TikTok. And a lot of creators aren't really happy with that because they're used to delivering, for their audiences. They condition their audiences to react more towards photos and captions as opposed to videos. And so it's a lot of back and forth. Who's right, who's wrong? I'm not here to say. What I'm telling you as a business owner is you need to figure out what kind of content you're comfortable in. For us, for I Sell Words, the content I'm comfortable with is podcasting. I love podcasting. I had 4 years in college radio. I was a station. I got a lot of experience with college radio, so I'm used to talking into a mic. I'm comfortable in it. I'm not used to this camera thing, but I'm trying to learn that aspect of it. But that's the reality. I have ADHD, and I like to ramble, and the podcast allows me to ramble and then go through and edit on the back end. But it allows me to have longer form conversations and more robust conversations than just short form. And then I can take that content from the podcast and chop it up. But the podcast allows you to get a glimpse of my thinking and see if it aligns with what you have in mind for your business. And so that's why I like the podcast format. That's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to have the time nor the patience to do it. Not everybody's comfortable with talking into a mic. And so you got to figure out what works for you. But the caveat to that is If you're not comfortable with any of it, you need to find the one that you're least uncomfortable with doing and dip your toe in the water and give it a shot. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to play the social media game and you want to put these accounts to work for you as employees, you have to feed them content. It's got to be good quality content. It can't just be something that's just churned out from a content mill. The content mills are great for those that don't know, the content mills are agencies that just create content for specific industries, social media platforms. So I've seen content mills for financial services. I've seen them for home services. I've seen them for landscaping. I've seen them for all kinds of other stuff. They just create relevant content for those individual industries. And if you're not a creative person or you don't feel like you're creative, you could actually take advantage of that stuff by taking the messages, reading them and kind of repurposing them for your use. Maybe put in a call to action, telling people what they need to do, maybe tweaking some of the words to make them sound a little bit more natural. So you can utilize it, but you need to infuse it with a little bit of your creativity and your personality. But you're going to have to figure out what kind of content you're comfortable with and start practicing it. Next is the creation piece. You have to create the content. You got to create it. You got to post it. And don't just fire it off into the ether. You got to follow up on it. You need to see what it does. You got to see if that piece of content does what you created it for. If it's designed to sell products, you need to see how many sales it creates. If it's designed to generate leads, you need to see what kind of leads it generates and how quality those leads are. If it doesn't work, do you take it in the backyard and shoot it? No, you just pull it down and tweak it a little bit and retest it. What the idea is, you want to keep testing until you find something that works the way you want it to, it delivers the way you want it to. And now the fun part, you get to make a template out of it. And this is where you start shifting towards making your social media content work for you. So far we've said you got to decide what channel you're using. You have to decide the message you're going to use. You have to decide what kind of content you're going to create. And now you've created the content. You found one that wins. Now's the time to make it a template. And when I say make it a template, if it's a social media post, copy paste it into Google Docs, copy and paste it into a Word doc, copy and paste it into whatever word processor you're going to use. And then find ways to change the words around a little bit for different products, different services, but use that format. Because if the format works, use it. Don't try to recreate the wheel every single time. Understand that some of the best marketing campaigns were just people taking bits and pieces of other marketing campaigns that worked and repurposing them for their own use. Create it once, use it for a long time. So if you have a video format that works, that wins, use that same video format. If you have a podcast format that works, use that podcast format. If you have a social media post or blog post format that works, utilize it. Just change the words around the message and the outcomes that you're trying to receive. Do not feel like you have to create something new every single time. That's the number one thing that you can do to get your marketing to the point where your social media accounts are like an extra worker. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel every single time. You don't want to do that. So make that a template to use. And lastly, ride it till the wheels fall off. You ride that thing until it stops working. And then when it stops working, you take it down. You figure out the pieces that aren't working, pull those out, and Frankenstein some new pieces on there and put it right back out there. The idea is, if you have a great worker, you're going to give that worker things that they can handle so that they can deliver the outcomes that you want, right? Right. So imagine this worker is not a human being, but a social media account that doesn't get tired, that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can absolutely maximize that by just feeding it the right content. And you get the right content by testing and making templates out of what you've already done, repurposing content that you've already used and putting it back out there. I do it with the podcast. We record one big long podcast and I chunk it up into segments. And I can use those segments for a month off of one recording. That's what you need to do. That's how you make your social media work for you. I can tell you a lot of creative people are addicted to creating stuff. We're addicted to creating new things every single time. You don't need to do that, especially when it comes to the business piece. You need to corral the creative side of you and focus on what works and what doesn't work. Now, does that mean that you can't test out new things? I never said that. You can test out as many new things and new strategies as you want. But when you find one that works, stick with it and put it to work. You ride it till the wheels fall off. Hey, if you want to get in contact with me, my email is mail@isellwords.net. We help small businesses figure out what their marketing message is and figure out how they can put their social media platforms to work to give them the outcomes they're looking for. Again, this is Bryon. If you want to reach out to me, or if you have any questions, matter of fact, if you got any questions for me, I'll try to answer them on the show. I'll try to answer them on the podcast or on the YouTube channel. You can hit me at that same mail@isellwords.net. I'll post that in the show notes. If you want to sit down and have a consult with me, because a lot of this stuff, I'm giving you surface level stuff. I can go a mile wide, but about an inch deep on YouTube. If you want to have more in-depth conversations, I will post a link for us to have a virtual consult. We can sit down and talk. But that's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.